Hello, welcome to Brunch Club with Luca and John.
Hi.
The Unbroken book by Laura Hillenbrand. And today we're just going to give you a brief overview of what we've read thus far and what our take is on it. And
Some instances that we can feel as though we've faced similar moments in the book. Some of that good stuff for you all.
I don't know about face similar moments, but
Yeah.
alright. So
So,
starting off, his early life, right?
yeah,
Um,
you know,
First few pages or first chapter almost is about just him, what people thought about him in Torrance and what he was doing, thieving around, stealing
yeah,
stuff. Here,
post-depression child, saw some of the not so nice life of the 1900s.
yeah, and it even says here on like page 11, he had no real ambitions.
He just kind of wanted to go through and just do whatever he felt like. But then, life came along and so did his brother, Pete. And his brother was like, we're going to get you some ambitions. So he took him to a track run because that was Pete's specialty was, running
Yeah,
track.
Pete was a really good runner.
Yeah. So he takes him to the first track meet, and he goes and he gets absolutely destroyed. The book even says he's kind of just loping along, arms flailing. People are making fun of him. So he ran off the track, hid beneath the bleachers, and said, I'm never doing this again. But you know what happens when you have an older family member that wants you to succeed.
Yeah, he really pushed him.
Yeah.
And,
There was no holding back there. He said in some parts the training was more like torture.
yeah, he kept improving on his speed over time. And the first few
Eventually,
chapters is really boring.
yeah, but it kind of gave you a background into his life. Like,
Yeah,
it goes on later to talk about how he didn't give up even in the hardship times that we're going to be talking about later. And I really feel like because of Pete pushing him to always better himself from the point where he started as a complete joke with people making fun of him to him later becoming the quote-unquote Torrance Tornado who competed in the Olympics, there was a very big stretch of time there that his brother really pushed him to be better than he thought he could ever be. What do you think about that, Luca?
yeah, that's pretty spot on. I'm just also looking in here at some of the other stuff he's done besides like Olympic running and stuff like that. They mentioned on 47 when he was at the College of Aeronautics.
Yeah.
He was doing movies too, but then he couldn't continue being in the movie because he got drafted.
World War II came along.
Yeah, but he's like a lot just in 47 pages. But the more
Yeah.
interesting stuff is when they go into fight school.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite parts that I've read up to so far.
And one of the things that I really liked was one of the bombings. I gotta look for it. But so let's Louie and Phil. They have a pretty good friendship.
Yeah.
I think later on in the book, I don't know. I don't want to try to spoil too much stuff, but they get really close.
Yeah, no, the part that I'm in is around like 140-ish, and their plane got shot down. They're drifting on the life raft. Louis was getting hit with that blood loss. Mac ate the chocolate.
Yeah, Mac. I didn't really like Mac.
No, Mac seemed like a good guy when you first met him, but like once it gets down to like the moments, Mac is more of like a fend for himself kind of guy.
Yeah, and he wasn't really. He was like a fresh. I don't think he's ever seen. I think in the book they said he never seen combat before.
No, he hadn't.
So
Yeah, that's why it said Louis said, I understand why he did it, even though he scolded him for it, because he panicked, so he ate their food.
which is like, how do you not think about the other two guys that are with you? That kind of
Exactly.
pissed me off because like, all right, You're stuck on this raft. One of your guys has a cut in his head, I think, and
Yeah.
he's been like completely knocked out. And
He's dying from blood loss. Like,
and you're out in the stranded, and you have
Mac was
limited amount of water, and then you just eat all the food that you have. Like, how do you?
Yeah, and Mac was the one that suffered the least amount of injuries when everything happened.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on how Louis survived that crash when he was all the way down in the ocean. I don't even know how the hell.
Physics, like, for that little bit, physics was like not gonna work real quick.
That was just, he's falling into the ocean, 20 feet down. His ears are popping. Then he passes out from the pressure, and then wakes up. But he's deeper into the ocean, where there's more. How do you? I don't even know. That's just crazy.
And you know, the crazy thing is, this is a true story, so there was no, like, fiction written here.
I know. I don't know this guy.
You have to be made of stronger stuff than you or I. Yeah. Like, he was like, I am not gonna die. His body was like, alright, we're gonna pass out, but you're still not gonna die.
Yeah. And the Green Hornet, I don't know why they had to use the Green Hornet. I'm pretty sure there were other planes.
Yeah.
Why did it have to be just the Green Hornet?
I don't know, like, when I was reading, I didn't really find anything symbolic about it. I didn't find anything that, like, made them choose that plane. Like, they had so many other choices, and yet they...
Like, how... Even if it was... Because here, it says, even with the Bombay and all 4 engines going, it was only just able to stay airborne. Like,
you don't want to fly... Yeah, you don't want to fly that into, like, enemy territory, because... exactly what's going to happen happened. You're going to get shot down, and everything's just going to fall apart.
And, like, people were pulling parts off of it to use on other planes. And I don't know how someone could just send you up in that.
It was such a bad thing from the start.
So, I also kind of felt bad about the Superman, because Superman kind of played a big role, and I would feel people would get connected to it like they did.
Yeah.
It was the only B-24 that actually didn't give up on them.
Yeah.
That I kind of felt bad when that got shot up and kind of stopped working.
Yeah, no, the Superman was a very inspirational plane for me. Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
So, where I'm at currently, I'm just going to say I'm at 203. And I'm not going to say too much.
You can talk about it, because...
if she's listening to it, or if everyone's listening to it. But, the guys... So, it's just Louie and Phil now. Mac died.
Oh, he did?
And...
Good, I hated Mac.
They were bad. They were hitting a lot of sharks, and Mac and Phil were both hitting sharks, just on the nose with like oars. And
because where I am, the sharks are surrounding their boat, waiting.
Yeah, it's crazy how all these sharks, they were jumping up like one after another, and it's like I kind of feel like that could have been exaggerated, because there's no way that a shark is just going to keep coming up and like trying to jump onto a raft.
I mean, it depends. If the shark is... This is more of a biological thing, but if the shark needs food and it sees a fresh source of food, sharks can follow a source around for days. And most animals can sense when something's close to death. So if they're close to death, then they're going to keep trying to get it just to speed along the process so they can get a quick meal.
They just kept like jumping.
Yeah.
I just thought it was like, this is a little crazy. They just kept jumping up another raft. And,
so the part you're on, they got picked up by the Japanese, right?
Yeah, and before that, when they saw another plane, that was like, they knew which way they were kind of heading after they saw the plane.
Oh, yeah.
And
I read that.
They fired up flares and stuff and put the dye in the water. And it was a Japanese bomber that started strafe running them.
Yeah.
And when they got picked up by the Japanese, the Japanese asked them like about their journey and all that kind of stuff. And they
Yeah, and
said that the Japanese bombers started strafing them, and they were like, "Oh, they're not supposed to do that. That breaks like honor and stuff." And
yeah,
they didn't
and they were
really
actually
look into
treated
it.
pretty well when they were on that boat. They're
Yeah.
pretty good.
So let's see.
Yeah, my English just flew out the window right there.
They untied their hands because they got tied up. They gave them cigarettes. They got cups of water and a biscuit each. And then a second boat pulled up, and they were helped onto it. They're being moved. They got more biscuits and coconut. They pulled up to a large island. Then they got their blindfolds put on, and they went into an infirmary where they were treated for whatever they had.
Yeah,
And they were told to be. The Japanese were told, "These are American flyers. Treat them gently." So
yeah, it's crazy to think about these Japanese soldiers that are being so kind and like gentle to these American flyers in a time of war are basically from the same army that committed the Nanking massacre and raped tens of thousands of people while murdering others. There was about 90,000 POWs in that time, an area where they chopped off their heads and took pictures with them. They would just run them through with spikes. They would throw babies up in the air and kill them. It's crazy to think how two so different events could happen from one of the same people, basically.
yeah, and even in the different branches, like so they were on an island, probably with like an airstrip and stuff. So they were flying with another. They were not flying. They were with other flyers. So, like when they went to Execution Island, a band of submariners came on. Like they were on the island and just docking, probably resupplying that kind of stuff. And they would like stone and spit and just beat the hell out of Louie and Phil, just for like no reason. They were just like, "Oh, yeah, we have POWs. Like, let's just beat the hell out of them."
Yeah. It really shows the two different sides of the Japanese at the time.
Yeah, and then there was this one guy. His name was Kawamura, something like that.
Yeah.
And he was like one of the nice guards, and he would draw like pictures, and he would give them candy, and he taught them like sort of some Japanese words using the pictures, and would learn English from them when they put down what the English word was. And he saw that when Karamura went off duty, another guard came and he started like beating the hell out of Louis, and Karamura came back the next day and saw that Louis was all beaten up, and was like, "Who did this to you?" and went and beat up the guard that beat up Louis, and showed him like, "Was this the guy?" But then Louis never saw him again after that. So I don't know what happened to Karamura.
Yeah, he was a good character. I liked him. Yeah. So when they were on the islands, they were tortured for information, or told that they were going to be...
On Execution Island, they were just brought into a room.
Right.
They were just brought into a room, and they were just asked questions. It doesn't say anything on when they were on Execution Island. They were tortured.
No, I'm pretty sure the next island they go to, they were tortured.
The next island, there were other Allied POWs there, and they couldn't talk to each other. They can only talk to officers there. They live in like these solitary cells, and they can't tap or do any sort of like form of communication. But when the prisoners were there, like outside sitting on benches, I don't think they were allowed to look at each other. And they were also using Morse code with their hands. So like a dot would be a closed fist, and a line would be an open fist or open hand.
Yeah, that's crazy because speaking about it, this girl that I work with, she's one of my coworkers. She's 28 right now. She was the girl that I was telling you about earlier, served in the army. And they had this thing where during exercises and during meal times, you weren't allowed to look up from either your exercise or your food. And the whole reason was behind it. If you had enough time to look up from your food at somebody else, then you obviously weren't hungry, so they would throw you out of the mess hall, and you'd start running laps until everyone else was done. And you had enough time to look up during exercise, and you obviously weren't working hard enough, so they would double the amount that you had to do. And even though that was just basic training for the United States Army, you can sort of feel like, in a small way, you can relate to that, because what they were trying to do is they're trying to break your spirit by not even allowing you to communicate with other people.
Yeah. There was a punishment, he says, a favorite punishment was to force men, sometimes for hours, into the Ofuna crouch, which was a painful and strenuous position in which men stood with knees bent halfway and arms overhead. And if they fell over or dropped to their arms, they were clubbed and kicked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and so in the Japanese army, you might know this, so if there's the certain rankings, and if they didn't do, like, a lower ranking, if they didn't do something that the higher-ups did, then they would get, like, beaten and tortured and whatever, to teach,
Discipline?
yeah, I escaped my mind. So,
Yeah, no, you're fine.
They put these low-ranking officers, or just low-ranking troops, onto Ofuna, and they would just, since they were always getting, like, beaten and all that, they were getting hurt and all that kind of stuff, because I guess they weren't good in the eyes of their officials, they would treat the POWs like garbage. And
Yeah. It's the bully mindset. If you're being treated like crap, you want to try and treat somebody else like crap to make yourself feel better.
And there was the saying was, because it says, in the Japanese military of the era, corporal punishment was routine practice. And it says, iron must be beaten while it's hot, soldiers must be beaten while they're fresh.
Yep.
So that alone, I mean,
That's actually a very important quote throughout history. It showed the brutality that they had when dealing with these kinds of things. As we talked about earlier, Luca, not on the podcast, but like on an earlier day,
yeah.
The whole thing behind it was when Americans had Japanese POWs, we treated them well. We fed them, we clothed them.
Well, that was international, like, law.
Right, but the Japanese,
the law didn't apply there.
Right, but the Japanese, even when it did apply, they would force the POWs to write home saying they were treated well, but when the time finally came, you saw all of these soldiers that were mistreated, beaten, killed. The Japanese really didn't care so much about law. They cared about winning the war, and they would